makes sense as somebody who's being used, being set up, and I think Eric Adams is being used as a tool. And there's a lot that Jason doesn't know. Hello, family. So I heard some interesting news today about incoming New York City Mayor Eric Adams, former police captain Eric Adams. There's a great article in the New York Times that you should look up about his comments and his promised support of the business community. And the comments basically went like this: New York has been run for the last few years like a dysfunctional city, and we're going to become a city that welcomes business. Business leaders, you're going to be looking at New York City and you're going to want to be here. We're going to address crime. We're going to address the economy. We're going to address I think he said it was the homeless that you're seeing on the street. And in reading the article, I learned that this was at some big business conference called the SALT, the SALT conference, held at the Javits Center, which was sponsored by one Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, who you probably remember was former President Trump's White House Director of Communications, very briefly. And he contributed a small amount to Eric Adams' campaign. And Eric Adams has also been supported by hedge funders, one of whom is a prominent charter school supporter. I can't remember his name. And the other is Stephen Cohen, who's the owner of the Mets. Excuse me, I have the dishwasher going in the back because apparently that was like smart of me. Good timing, right? Let's turn the dishwasher on before we make a video. Okay, so anyway, I guess Eric Adams is smarter than I am, for one. But it's interesting, right? He runs as this kind of person of the people, right? He was victimized by the police as a young black man. He rose above such racial profiling and economic hardship to become a police captain eventually. He was the Brooklyn Borough president. He really had his pulse on the street, especially with young black people. I mean, he was on WNYC during the pandemic, at least once a week, talking about the effect of the pandemic, the effect of the economy, the effect of everything from fireworks to guns to availability of PPE and employment, education, all of it. Like, he was talking about all of it in places like Brownsville and East New York, Crown Heights, and I have a lot of respect for the guy that way, because he gets out and he works the streets. He knocks on doors and he talks to people and he figures out what his constituents need, and that's cool. But what I've been hearing lately is kind of a different Eric Adams, one who is concerned more with things like public-private partnerships of what start out as public institutions. Once the private sector starts owning things like city jobs, schools, utility companies, life becomes a lot more difficult for black people, brown people. It can become really impossible for immigrants. It can become a very unfriendly place to anyone who isn't in the upper middle class or wealthy. So I thought his comments were really interesting, and I thought the fact that he's backed by Trump supporters and conservative Republican or wealthy donors, I thought it was really interesting, and that he is standing up there making those remarks. So I thought we'd do a reading today and just ask a couple questions about Eric Adams. So one of the great things about the tarot is that you get to see behind the scenes what someone is thinking, what someone's feeling, what their intentions are. So let's just start with that. So tell me about Eric Adams' intentions. You're drawing tarot cards is a lot like doing body work or energy work. I feel for the vibrations. It doesn't always work that way, sometimes things just pop out. Okay. So we have a 3, a 10, and a 2. We have 2 fire cards and an earth card. 2 fast-moving cards and a slow-moving card. We have 2 cards about creativity, about drive, and we have 1 card about manifestation. We have cards about inspiration, and we have cards about setting about a task to manifest that inspiration. So this is the movement from asking for help or asking for something great. Basically, this person is asking for the kingdom, right? And this is Jason and the Argonauts. I won't go into the whole story, but basically, he's asking the king, I forget his name, for the kingdom. And the king says, all right, you can have the kingdom, I'll give you the crown, but I need you to do something for me first. And he sends Jason on a fool's errand. It's worse than a fool's errand. He says, go get me this golden fleece. This is the golden fleece here, which Zeus created and is, it's a creation of the god and just incredibly valued by all men. It's also, in the story, it's also guarded by a fire-breathing dragon. And the king knows that if he sends Jason on a journey to get the golden fleece, Jason most likely will be killed and not returned. So this is a setup. This is, I'm alone here. I don't have any crew yet. I don't have any support. It's just me. I'm a self-made man. I've come up from adversity. He was kind of a bastard child, right? I've come up through adversity, not really knowing what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, but I just, I was determined to make my way, and so I did. That's a lot like Eric Adams. And then he has this wealthy guy in front of him who says, okay, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom, I'll give you everything. I mean, imagine that statement. You can have everything, to the golden city that's on the hill, right? Doesn't that sound kind of like New York, or maybe like Ronald Reagan's New York, for those who've heard that speech? But we need you to do this thing, and it's going to be hard, but I think you're a man up to the task. So for me, this is a lot like a politician who's starting his career. It makes sense that this would be a politician starting his career, who's got one shoe on and one bare foot, doesn't really have his feet underneath him, doesn't really have his footing underneath him yet. In other words, can't call his own shots, is out there alone, doesn't have a crew yet. He doesn't have the Argonauts yet. He hasn't recruited the Argonauts yet in that part of the story. And it makes sense as somebody who's being used, being set up. And I think Eric Adams is being used as a tool. And there's a lot that Jason doesn't know. He doesn't know that the Golden Fleece is impossible to get and that he's going to die. And he doesn't know that the king knows, or the king believes, that he's not going to make it back, that he's being sent on a fool's errand. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't do it. This is a ambitious young man who's being set up, who's being used for other purposes. Okay, and then the Ten of Wands. This is a person who, so in the story, Jason has returned from his journey. He partnered with a woman, Medea, and then he ditched her, and that holds dire consequences later. He acquired the Golden Fleece. He did it with the help of Medea, the sorceress. He did the impossible. He brought the Golden Fleece back, and now he's the king, or he's about to become the king. And he's sitting there with his ship in need of repair, incapable of sailing. And this is the what the fuck do I do now card, right? I have everything that I wanted, and everything that I asked for was given to me, and I accomplished everything that I tried to do. I went from being a soldier and a fighter and a conniver and a dirty dealer to being the ruler, to being the leader. And what do I do with myself? You know, and in a way, it's owing to Jason's need for adventure, because he is the kind of person who, like fire, needs to move around. He can't be contained. Like, being contained like this is the worst thing for someone like that. He needs to be in a ship going on an adventure and testing his mettle and learning to be a fighter and a leader, and to, you know, con sorceresses and all these other like wild things. So it's interesting. It's also a card that my teacher Patty Canova believes, because of how the wands are configured. It's also a card that is the card of the photographer. And Eric Adams has been very averse to allowing some of the press into his conferences or events. He's just flatly refused to admit some journalists who've written unfavorable things about him. It's also the card of the prisoner. So it's a card of someone who is in jail, like the bars of a jail that we're seeing here. And some say this is the past and that this is the present, or I guess it could be the near future. I'm not really getting that from this. I'm getting more like this is a progression of intention, manifestation, and energy, right? The intention to do something, the manifestation of it happening, and then the result of it. So the intention through to the manifestation, rather than past, present, and future. I don't think Eric Adams is going to end up doing a second career, although he might. Well, actually, that kind of makes sense, right? So the Two of Pentacles, there's two things. Pentacles are money, coins, earthly things, material things. It can be the body. Pentacles can symbolize wealth, or they can symbolize the body, or they can symbolize career, they can symbolize craftsmanship, artistry. And in the Pentacles, this person, Daedalus, who is one of the earliest master craftsmen, at least in Greek mythology, Daedalus is holding a half hammer, half axe, which he invented. And he's got all these tools and some beautiful golden stuff on the table, materials. And he's standing ready to work over a workbench out in a beautiful field. It's part of nature, and the table is supported by two golden pentacles. The pentacles for Daedalus, kind of like this guy, the pentacles for Daedalus were always given to him. He always had a sponsor, a rich person, a king, a queen, someone who would pay him for his work. He didn't just create things and then put them out to be sold. He was servant to royalty. So here again I'm seeing kind of a divide, right, between the wealthy class, as in the people who set the individual on a mission, set the individual to work, and the individual himself. So if the men in the photo are representing Eric Adams, the cards are saying that Eric Adams is being given work, given assignments, given direction, sometimes given fool's errands by the wealthy. It might just be what I'm seeing, but it also would be one interpretation, one thing that we could draw from the cards. Maybe there's three, maybe there's four, maybe there's a dozen, but of them all, that's I think a legitimate thing that the cards are saying. Also, the Pentacles, the Two of Pentacles shows duality. It shows two jobs, right? It shows two things that are happening, the number two. And that could also be said of Eric Adams, you know, having to have a hand in like a liberal progressive pie that helps causes like education and housing and creating jobs for the working class, while also having a hand in the real estate and the finance industries, which is its own economy compared to the economy of those who are in the working class. You either make money by the sweat of your brow, or you make money with money, right? So it could refer to that, or it could refer, which is a fact, and it can also refer to the fact that he's both a cop. You don't just become a cop and then and ascend to those heights if you're not really a cop at heart. Kind of like someone who practices I don't know, science or biology or music and then becomes a teacher. You know, they don't stop being a scientist, they don't stop being a musician or an artist because they become a teacher. In fact, some of them are always teachers. They feel that the teaching is very close to them the rest of their life. I think working in something like law enforcement must be that, because of the commitment, it's all consuming. And so is politics, so is being the mayor. So now he's got two things happening. The thing about twos, both the great thing and the challenging thing, is that their beginning energy, their new energy, they're at the outset when, you know, all the materials are fresh, all the tools are sharpened, the vision is clear, you know, everyone is, as they say, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning, ready to get out there and, you know, tackle the day, tackle the tasks at hand. And I think this is very much how Eric Adams is feeling right now. I feel, or, you know, one sees a lot of energy from him. He's going out there. Well, he went out at the SALT conference making this speech, and he was, I think, really from the tape that I heard, really energized. Is tape a thing anymore? He was really energized, really motivated. So what's motivating this guy? Well, I mean, he wants a career in politics for sure. He wants to be the ultimate leader, the leader at not the ultimate leader, but he wants to be a leader at the highest level that he can be. But he also is like a chaser of visions and dreams, and he is going to feel a little constrained by politics. You know, the things that are put on him that he's told he can't do. You know, you can't collect money this way. Maybe you can't treat the law this way. You can't use nukes just because we have them. That's not an example specific to Eric Adams, but you know, sometimes the law to someone who's a leader, or policy to someone who is a leader, sometimes can feel like a prison. It sometimes can feel very constraining. You know, and at heart, he's never stopped his previous job, which was a police officer, or maybe one could say that in his heart, he's always been someone who wanted to rise as high up as he could in leadership in politics, even as he worked as a police officer. So that's a little about Eric Adams, kind of his intention and what may be happening behind the scenes, why he's saying some of the things that he's saying, and why he's becoming a little bit more conservative in terms of policy now. And don't forget, when policy gets more conservative, it's usually the poor who suffer. So I'm a little afraid of what's going to happen with Eric Adams, and I think we all should be. I think he needs to be watched really closely, even without the cards. That would still be my opinion. And I think that's probably the opinion of a few other people too, you know, moderate or liberal journalists, or, you know, watchdogs, whatever. I mean, it's our job to try to keep our politicians in check, to try to call them out and to speak truth to power. That's our job. There's no more powerful way of speaking than voting. What percentage of people voted in the last election? That in the most recent election, it was something like 7 or 8% of New Yorkers voted in the election, and now here we are. All right, so that's enough sunshine and rainbows from me. I love you all. I hope that you're taking care of yourselves, and I hope that you're taking care of each other. All right, take care.